Speaking on this drone situation over the Black Sea, where a Russian Su-27 struck a U.S. Reaper drone. And by struck, I mean physically hit it with their aircraft. Didn't shoot it down with a missile or guns or anything. The Russian pilot hit the drone with his aircraft. And this animation that was created by CBS is based on the briefing given by the Pentagon, specifically the Air Force, on what took place and the analysis that came to the conclusion that it was likely the Russian pilot didn't mean to hit the drone with the tail of his Su-27 aircraft. Now, before I get into that, I want to discuss first and foremost, this drone, this Reaper drone, absolutely can operate in international airspace. The U.S. is perfectly within its right to fly this drone in international airspace. Both Turkey and Romania border the Black Sea, and they are a part of NATO. This falls within the NATO defensive posture, the NATO defense systems, and this Reaper drone was likely collecting information on what was going on in Ukraine, but also monitoring the Black Sea fleet, because Russia has clearly become a belligerent nation and a concern for NATO. So it is perfectly within its right to be, the U.S. can be in this international airspace, and the U.S. has taken great care not to enter either the war zone with its aircraft nor enter Russian airspace. So what this pilot did was a complete breach of international protocols here, and absolutely dangerous and reckless, although the Russian media is likely going to spin it as some kind of heroic event that he took down this Reaper drone, which, let's be honest, it's just a slow moving drone. You're not, it's like shooting a balloon out of the sky, basically. You're not doing anything special here. But we'll go ahead and look at the footage real quick. So you can see the Su-27 is diving under the Predator drone. It's doing this for two reasons. The first reason is it wants to get under the drone to try to take the lift away from the drone, so the drone falls into the ocean. But also, he's dumping fuel and he's going to climb in front of the drone. The fuel is meant to get all over the optics, the avionics, all the mechanical parts, to try to gum them up and force the drone down as well. This is a very dangerous maneuver, because as this pilot is flying under the drone loses lift, and because of that, it can fall into the aircraft. And I think, and a lot of the experts and in the Air Force community have discussed this and said they think this is what ended up happening, because as you can see, the pilot, as he starts to climb, he hits the drone with the tail of his Su-27. He did not mean to hit the drone. What likely happened is either misread the distance between himself and the drone, or the drone dropped in altitude briefly while this Su-27 was underneath him, taking away this aircraft's lift. The reason he wants to climb in front also is he wants to have this drone fly through the jet wash of the Su-27. When when you fly through the jet wash of another aircraft, it causes a huge amount of turbulence. You can lose lift as well, and you can go into a flat spin or crash. If you've ever watched the first movie, Top Gun, that's what happens to Maverick and Goose when they have to eject, and Goose dies. That's a real thing. Flying through the jet wash of another aircraft, it can be very dangerous. And so, because this is an unmanned aircraft, they don't really care. So he wants to force this Reaper drone through the jet wash, dump a bunch of fuel on it, and then have this Reaper drone either crash or at the very least have to return to base because it's covered in fuel. Now, as you can see, he hits the propeller of the drone with the tail of his Su-27 here, and it obviously causes when you don't have the thrust of a propeller, or your propeller's damaged, you're going to crash. And so that's what ends up happening. The Reaper drone crashes into the Black Sea, and the fighter jet climbs out of the way. Now, the reason this is incredibly dangerous is because this is not a small drone. This is actually quite large, and I'll kind of give you an example by bringing this over here. I mean, this is obviously people standing next to one of these. So hitting the propeller, it's a significant propeller. You can see here the diameter here of the propeller. I mean, it's a large drone. This isn't like a quadcopter that this fighter jet hit, which is why many believe he didn't mean to hit it. If you hit this aircraft, or you wingtip it, as some people are saying that happened, is the Su-27 wingtipped it. That's absolute nonsense. if there's something that happens with this aircraft where it accidentally turns into the aircraft or hits the Su-27, they're both going down. This, as you can see, this is not a small drone. So those people that are saying he hit it deliberately with his aircraft, either that pilot did hit it deliberately and is incredibly stupid, or is just a bad pilot and ended up hitting the drone while conducting this maneuver, and he didn't do it on purpose. So where we go from here, I don't think the US is going to do anything drastic. I think what you might see is, for a bit, you'll see drones escorted. Like if there's Reaper drones, they'll be escorted by US fighters or NATO fighters for a bit, just as a show of force, like don't mess with our crap or we'll engage you, things like that. So don't foresee this being a problem going forward, but absolutely silly maneuver by the Russians, the Russian pilot, and the Russians will obviously spin it as a victory for them taking down a US Reaper drone. These are about $30 million, how much those drones are, not counting if it had any missiles on it or anything like that. So that was my thoughts on that. So let me know if you think something different.